Hello, wonderful people of the internet. Today I'm going to be reviewing The Light Fantastic by Terry Pratchett, so without any further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so The Light Fantastic is the second book in the Discworld series, which I've got behind me here, and it comes after The Colour of Magic, which I reviewed a couple of weeks ago. Now, what is this book about? I'm going to be going into full spoilers for this review, by the way, and I kind of spoil The Colour of Magic by talking about it as well. So if you haven't read any of The Colour of Magic or The Light Fantastic, or intend to read them sometime soon, please click off now. If you don't mind hearing spoilers or have already read them, by all means stick around. Let's get into this thing. So, The Light Fantastic picks up immediately after The Colour of Magic, at which the main character, Rincewind, found himself hanging off the edge of the world. When I read that, I thought, well, how the hell is it going to get out of that? It gets out of it pretty easily in this book, just by, there's this spell he has in his head, one of the 8 spells in the most powerful magical book in the world. There's a spell in his head that has its own plans for him, because this spell is sentient, and so it kind of reforms reality so that Rincewind is instead in a forest, as is Twoflower, who is this tourist who Rincewind has been tasked to show around the Discworld, and his luggage, which is made of sapient pear wood and has loads of little feet coming. I'll show you the cover. That's it there. So that's the setup, but that's not really what the book is about. The book is about what is happening to the Discworld, or more specifically where it is going, and that is directly towards a big red star. And it's about, well, in theory it's about Rincewind trying to stop the Discworld, which is a turtle with 4 elephants on its back with a Discworld, which is a disc on the back. In theory, he's trying to stop it from the turtle from swimming into this. I say swimming, moving into this star. But that's not what this book is about at all. That's kind of going on in the background of all this stuff. I can't really go any further into the plot than that without, taking ages, because it's really a continuous story from beginning to end. But that's the bare bones summary of at least what the setup of the story is. So, let's get into what I thought about this book. I've got Andrew Garfield this time because I forgot him in my last review, which was of the Sandman Volume 1. So let's get into what I liked. Okay, so pros, got Andrew Garfield in his happy side. I'm gonna start by saying how funny this. Oh, sorry, I've got my notes here. I'll put them here so I don't look down. Was how funny this book was. It was a lot funnier than the first one. The first one was funny. One thing I mentioned last time that I really liked was that there was a fantasy character in a fantasy world committed an insurance scam by burning down his tavern. That's funny to me. But this book was funny a lot more frequently and a lot more effectively. I found there were some moments that genuinely had me snorting, and I'm not gonna lie, a lot of that was due to puns which Pratchett had made throughout this book. One of them that I'll tell you now that stood out to me was, it was towards the end of the book where all the citizens of Ankh-Morpork, which is the biggest, well not the biggest, but the most important and amazing city in the world, there were loads of people kind of starting riots there because obviously the world's going to end with the turtle swimming into the star, and one of the characters goes, "Oh, there are loads of people robbing a musical shop over there. Can you believe that?" And Rincewind goes, "Oh, I suspect they're looters," but it's spelled... it's not funny if I explain it, but I'm going to tell you anyway. It's spelled as in L-U-T-E-R-S, like the loot, and it's little puns like that were quite common in here that I loved. There was a lot more slapstick, mainly with the character of... I believe this is him on the cover anyway, Cohen the Barbarian, who is an aged hero who is 87, and his days of his prime are behind him, but he hasn't really processed that yet, so he's still doing adventures despite the fact that he's horribly arthritic along with other things. And there was a moment where he goes to deliver the finishing blow with his sword to someone that he's fighting, and then his back locks and he collapses. It's just little things like that that are really funny as well. But one of the things that was most funny about this book was the commentary. one bit that stood out to me was in regards to a character who was like a heroine, you know, a female hero called Helena, I believe. I think that was her name. She wasn't in the book much, but what kind of the discussion that was sparked around her, I do remember. Now, you know, quite commonly in fantasy, you know, women have really ineffective armor, and the fact that it reveals loads of skin because it's like, you know, written by men. Basically, you know, you think of video games, there are women in armor, that really covers nothing, and it's like, that's not armor, is it? And just things like that, like the sexualization of female characters in the fantasy genre. Pratchett uses Helena to discuss this, and the biggest thing that I can point out here is with the cover. Now, I'm assuming this is her anyway. Up here, I believe this is Helena, as you can see. It's not focusing. She's in really revealing clothes. I'll try and find the segment for you, because I can't really, you know, describe it adequately. Right, okay, so when he introduces the character of Helena, which I'm on the bit here, yeah, her name is Helena. When he introduces that, and while he's describing her, he says, "Now there is a tendency at a point like this to look over one's shoulder at the cover artist and start going on at length about leather, thigh boots, and naked blades. Words like fall, round, and even pert creep into the narrative until the writer has to go and have a cold shower and a lie down." And so, despite the fact that he says that Helena is not in fact wearing anything like that, but wearing sensible chainmail and armour that would actually work in a battle, on the cover, you've still got her wearing that. And I'm assuming that was an intentional communication between Paul, I think it's Josh Kirby at this point, and Pratchett, and that makes me laugh. That was really funny. But I took way too long to explain that little thing. Let's move swiftly onwards, yeah? So, another thing I really liked about this book was that it developed not just the Discworld, but the characters as well. In the first book, it was really just a bit of a laugh in an absurd fantasy world with no real character, as in with the characters, or solid world building, whereas in this, it was built upon a bit more. Like the characters, well, at least Rincewind and Two Flower were established a lot more as people with like emotions and worldviews than they were in the previous one. Don't get me wrong, in the previous one they were really good characters still, I really liked following them, but they were kind of basic 2D ideas of who they were, whereas in this, Rincewind was developed a bit more than Two Flower, but still they developed, and that was nice to see as the book kind of shifted away from being just solely funny to being a proper story as well. But that still sounds like I'm hating on The Colour of Magic, but I gave that book, I think, 4 stars. I really liked it, so, but, you know, it improved on an already good foundation, and things in the Discworld, like trolls, there was a lot about trolls in here, which I like. The trolls are made of rock and with diamond teeth, and that's just cool to me. Things like shops that randomly appear and disappear, they're mentioned in this. Just a lot of things that come up, that I know come up later, are established, and that's nice. Now, still looking over here, I do want to talk about Cohen the Barbarian, who I said is on this cover, and he, you know, he looks cool and all on this cover. I don't dislike this portrayal of him, but I really do prefer, if I reach over here, off of the camera, here I have The Last Hero, which I look forward to reading because I love Cohen so much, which is, well, at least in part, about Cohen, and he's here, and I prefer this portrayal of him as a character than the other one, because it kind of looks older, but also fiercer, but as I was trying to say, Cohen is the aged hero, and I just loved him in this book. He was a great, sorry, I want to look at you when I'm talking, so we can put that in. Just that. Oh yeah. So he was a really enjoyable character to have in this story. It's just another outlet for comedy of, as I said, like slapstick, but also just in a conversational way. Just like the whole concept of who Cohen is just a great way to set up comedy. And throughout the book, he was definitely one of my favourite parts of any scene because he's just so funny and ingenious as a character idea. But I don't want to when I start talking about things I love, I tend to have a tendency to I ramble basically. If I talk about something that I really really love, Cohen. So we'll leave it there. I'm trying to keep this brief because as I said, there's a lot to get into, and I don't want to keep you here too long. So I'll flip Mr. Garfield over onto the negative side and start talking about the cons. So there still aren't many cons with this. There are more than in The Colour of Magic, but not. It's like there's still very few. So one of them was plot holes, which did appear in this book quite a lot. And I did remember one from the last book that I forgot to mention, and that was that Two-Flower is meant to not be able to speak the Ankh-Morporkian language in the first short story in the first book, but then in the rest of the stories he speaks to other characters fine, which is kind of weird. But you know, it's like even that doesn't really matter because the interactions that he's having are funny, so I would rather he could talk, if that makes sense. But that was something I did notice. But in this, there were just like moments where suddenly characters would know things that hadn't been communicated to them. Like Rincewind was having a moment with the spell in his head, and one of the new characters says, "What's going on?" And Two-Flower says, "Oh, it's a spell, it's a whole thing." But I don't really think Two-Flower knew that, unless I missed something. But just little things like that. But they did. It's like it's not a major thing, and it didn't make me dislike the book by any degree. But it was just kind of like, well, you slipped up there, kind of like that. Another thing that I will talk about, and the last thing as well, is the character of Bethan, who kind of turned up at about the halfway point in the book, and I loved her introduction. She was a sacrificial virgin for druids in like a Stonehenge, and Rincewind and Two-Flower rescue her, thinking they're doing the right thing, and then she's like, "Excuse me, I've had years of staying home on Saturday night. I'm going to die here, and I'm going to go to heaven." And like that was funny as a commentary on yet again the whole saving the damsel who's going to be sacrificed, yada yada yada. But after that introduction, she doesn't really get further developed as a character. Like she keeps her kind of like spunky attitude, which is fun, and it's fun to see her like at the end of the story the wizards are all bumbling and she sorts them out. Like it's not that I didn't like her character, it's such there wasn't much to her, and that she kind of stood out in such a strong cast of characters otherwise. She just decides to marry Cohen. Like her and Cohen are getting married, and it just kind of came out of nowhere. But it's like there was some funny moments that came out of that as well. But I think just on the whole, she was kind of underdeveloped. That might just be me though. So I'm sure that now I'm saying this, there'll be someone who's like, "What are you talking about? Bethan was the best part of this book." But yeah, she kind of stood out as worse than the rest of the characters. But we'll cut that off there because I'm looking at the time. It's only 14 minutes, but I haven't really got anything else to talk about, and as I said, I don't want to ramble. Although I will flip over Andrew Garfield for one final positive thing while we're here. I really liked the ending to this book. Like the resolution of all the conflict was cool. In fact, there were some great action scenes towards the end. But I really liked the actual ending moments where Two-Flower decides it's time for him to go home and says goodbye to Rincewind. It's like I was actually getting emotional, which I wasn't expecting to happen. But when they were saying goodbye and kind of like Two-Flower leaves Rincewind his luggage, it's just kind of like a moment where, because the status quo was like, oh, Two-Flower's here, he's got his luggage. Since that was broken, that made it really impactful. But I really like the ending, and we'll cut off there. Now, I've already read Equal Rights, so I will be filming a review of that on Sunday, easy peasy, because I don't have to read the book. I was going to upload this on Sunday, but I hadn't finished it by then. But that's all I have to say about The Light Fantastic. What am I going to give it? I'm going to give it 4 stars. Like The Colour of Magic, this was still a really fun book, and I still disagree with people saying that you shouldn't start the Discworld series with these. Although I am glad that I know, because I've read Equal Rights, that the Discworld books do start to move away from the kind of solely focused around laughs and kind of comedic situation kind of vibe. I'm glad that we're going to move away from that and start going towards stories like in Equal Rights. So I've enjoyed this little run of kind of different kind of story, but I'm ready for it to kind of get on the tracks of what I know as Discworld in the future. So there we are. Just want to mention now, Isabel from Mort turned up in this book, and that made me smile because I wasn't expecting that. I love Death and all of his like family. Death is Isabel is Death's daughter, adopted, that is, and I was just happy to see her show up. But that's the end note. Thank you for watching, and I will be here on Sunday reviewing the Equal Rights, the 3rd book, and have a good one, y'all. Bye.